I don't know if what we're saying is already going to be on the YouTube archive, so we'll just get right into it. Why is the guy's estimate so low? Guy's estimate so low because Zillow doesn't send a guy over to each house and do an appraisal. It's a starting point. It's a computer algorithm that is based on things like market activity, assessed values, and other guesses that the computer does to be a starting point for the consumer to use as a ballpark for their valuation. Now, if Zillow is the starting point, what do you think the end point is?
What it actually sells for?
Yeah, call an agent.
Right.
Call an agent. Zillow designed all of their things so that people will call agents. This is what people don't understand. They're not looking to disintermediate or put brokers out of business. They want to be the tool of choice for brokers.
Right.
And because they're not encumbered by NAR rules or IDX rules or, you know, committee paralysis, they can be a lean, mean, capitalistic machine and move a lot quicker and adapt to consumer trends than NAR or the other trade organizations.
Where do they get their information, like square footage and number of bedrooms and bathrooms?
Public values, public records, and prior listings. That's where they get it.
So if a town has no computerized digital public records, oh, I guess if they have they probably get it from realists.
Well, they have their own. They tap into their own database. You know, they're no different than what, for example, CoreLogic does. Except CoreLogic is more B2B. Zillow has done it to be for the public facing.
Right.
Okay. Zillow publishes the margin of error for their Zestimate publicly on their site. It's buried at the very bottom of the front page, but if you click on About Zestimates, you can drill down to, I believe, county, and it'll tell you how many Zestimates are within 5%, 10%, and so forth. In Westchester, the last time I looked, the margin of error for a Zestimate was around 11.6%. So Zillow, not super accurate in Westchester. But that's the point. The point is that it's a starting point. It's not supposed to be used as an appraisal.
I think that it's difficult to really pinpoint right now anyway. For example, the house in White Plains that, you know, the market was able to bear $30,000 over asking, but it's not going to sell for that. So how could you literally, I mean, that's more than a 11% differentiation. So how could you really pinpoint anyway right now?
Well, that's the truth. Zillow can't tell if the house smells like cat pee, right?
Right.
Zillow and even a broker that walks into the house and goes through it still has to guess, hypothetically, what they think the buying public is going to pay for a property.
Exactly.
There's typically 3 metrics to value, to guessing value. There's the municipality's guess, which is assessed value. There is the a bank's appraised value, which again is just a guess. But at the end of the day, the only real measurement of market value is what the buying public is willing to pay for a piece of property.
But it's interesting because, you know, once you bring financing into the mix, market value doesn't even really matter so much anymore.
Right. The market value of that house, if they were paying cash, would be 5 whatever.
Right.
The bank only wanted them to pay high 4s or whatever. So what you've got is a situation of those that manage risk in underwriting mortgages, hedging their bet, and unwittingly affecting the rise of values.
And it skews market value because truly the market value is that.
Well, financing.
We consider market value the closed comp.
That's
But now
correct.
that one's going to close for a lot less than, more than likely. We'll see what happens, but.
Right. So that's correct. So financing affects market values, just like in 2008 when all the banks went out of business. That affected the market value of houses because the funding sources dried out, and there you had market value being affected. Just like interest rates will affect it and everything like that. But getting back to Zillow, the Zestimate is supposed to be a starting point. Best line I've ever heard. The best line I've ever heard about the Zestimate is the Zestimate is a starting point, and we, the real estate professionals, are the Zactimate.
Right.
We are where consumers should go once they look up their Zestimate. I don't want people to call me at 11:30 at night when they have insomnia and they wonder what their house is worth. I want them to get on Zillow and then see me, I hope, in the sidebar, and in the morning call me to say, is that $600,000 estimate accurate on my house?
Right.
I do get calls like that from time to time, which is what some people need to understand. So, do you think that'll answer your guys' question about the about his house's Zestimate?
Yeah, and then you've told me that there's ways to work with that. So, yeah, it definitely for me. I think you're right. It's just a conversation starter. It's not an obstacle.
Right. So, the other thing you just alluded to, there's things we can do to affect this estimate.
Right.
If a consumer logs onto Zillow and they see that their house is, $100,000 less than what they believe it's worth, they can look at the data and they can claim the listing as the owner on Zillow, and they can input information to correct the data and explain why they think what they think the estimate should be and why they think that's so.
Right.
Also, a listing agent can claim their own listing on Zillow, claim it as the agent of the owner, and they can input data to explain why they believe the Zestimate should be higher and what they believe the Zestimate should be.
Okay.
Okay? I've done that on a house in, a number of houses, but I'll give an example. If someone were to Google the address 304 Stuart Drive, Stuart, they will see that in the last 9 or 10 months, the Zestimate has shot up because the seller legalized a room, they added 600 square feet, they renovated the whole place. So I put in there on behalf of the owner that we believe the Zestimate should be $650,000. These are our reasons why. And over the months that it was listed, the Zestimate went up to 640 something thousand. I think it topped out at 652. We had a deal die. I believe the Zestimate is at 646 right now. We're signing contracts on Friday, so the day after tomorrow, within 1% of that number.
Nice.
Not bad. Of course, the original number that we started out with was what I came up with on a CMA. So that's good. So there are some agents that don't like Zillow.
Yes, there are.
There's some consumers that don't like Zillow. You don't have to like Zillow, but what you should not do is call for a boycott of Zillow, and you should not condemn those that choose to do business with Zillow any more than you choose to condemn someone that decides to go to Baskin Robbins or Applebee's.
It's a third-party affiliate.
Right.
It's just like an enhanced third party, really, because like I've said to other people, third party lead providing third parties businesses have been part of real estate since, I guess, there was able to have people that can, license realtors or license real estate agents.
They're the second oldest profession.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, so
Glenn Ross, the whole movie was based about that.
Good point.
Yeah, but they came in little postcards.
By the way, I'm a closer, and I get coffee. In reference to your reference.
I'm a closer, but I drink seltzer.
It's your prerogative. So the other night on Facebook, there was a posting about Zillow's latest TV commercial, and it's Zillow does a good job. They do these heartstring pulling commercials about home and heart and family and everything like that, and the first one was a home run. You know, great song. I forgot the group, but they just. It's
a really good song.
Oh, yeah. You know, really got you. Now, the second one that they just did was themed on a husband and wife talking remotely, actually like the way you and I are talking right now.
Right.
And then you find out at the very end, as she walks past a sold sign in the yard, and there's her husband, and he just looks like he just came back from the Middle East military duty. All right? So, again, really heartstring, sentimental, Americana, home run kind of commercial. There were some criticisms of the commercial that, you know, Zillow kind of capitalized or profiteered on the whole people going overseas to serve their country thing.
Right.
Which I didn't serve in the military, and I can't speak to that. I mean, when a guy in the Navy, when a Navy veteran says that, what am I going to do? Tell him he's wrong? This guy served this country.
Right.
What Zillow does to support veterans wasn't disclosed in the commercial, and it's not why they were in the commercial. And, you know, we'll leave that to Zillow to answer that. But the other criticism of it was that there's no prominent realtor or call to action, like click on call an agent, the way there was in the other commercial. Now, there was a real estate brokerage sold sign in the yard, but if you blinked, you would have missed it, so the people were critical of that. This started a whole discussion on a Facebook group, which you saw, where you had three camps. You have the people that don't like Zillow and feel that they don't want to do business with Zillow. You have the people that do business with Zillow. And then you have the third whack job crowd that, you know, believe that Zillow is the Antichrist, and that anybody that does business with Zillow can't sleep, should not sleep at night, and is harming the industry.
Right.
So this is where I disclose that I've been doing business with Zillow since 2006. When you met me, I was one of the early adapters of syndication. In 2010, I started advertising on Zillow for pay directly to Zillow. I became a premier agent, as they say, and last September, Zillow put me on their agent advisory board. All right? So I have to disclose that so people understand where my biases are, and, you know, I'm not talking like a disinterested third party. I have a relationship with Zillow. Okay? All right. So, as you just stated, third-party sites have been around since there was real estate. When you and I got in the business, people didn't say, I want to put my house on Zillow, but they did say, I want to put my house in Harmon Homes or the Supermarket magazine, right?
Right.
They would say, I want to put my house in the Penny Saver, which has been around for 50 years, right?
Right.
They would say, I want my house to be in the Journal News, or if you were old enough to remember, the Citizen Register, right?
Right.
So there have always been conduits for us to spend money and tell our clients that we're doing more to sell their house.
Right.
The cost of a classified ad for one day in the New York Times pays for my Zillow advertising for a month. So the idea that Zillow is extorting money from me is laughable. Because of the internet, advertising costs have gone down, especially in the print arena, because we don't need print.
Right.
Okay. Now, there's three beefs that these people have, the xenophobes, as I call them. They feel that Zillow is taking our data and selling our leads back to us. They feel, then there's a germ of truth into that. They feel that Zillow data inaccuracies are a big problem, which I would agree with. And they have this conspiracy theory that Zillow is trying to disintermediate or remove the broker intermediary from the transaction, right, and make us irrelevant so that Zillow can be the one broker to rule them all. So let's start with the last one first. As I said on my blog post yesterday, there's no sinister plan for Zillow to put brokers out of business. The only thing sinister at Zillow is if you go to their headquarters and you go to the employee snack bar, they have across the wall, you know, all those supermarket candy machines with like jujubes and gummy bears and milk duds and
gumballs.
Oh. Now, when you're a kid, you got to put a dime in that or a quarter. You just turn the thing. There's no. You don't have to put a dime in at Zillow. You just get all you want. I would be a diabetic inside of 2 months if I worked at Zillow. That's the only sinister thing about Zillow. Okay. They do not want to disintermediate brokers. Why would you put your paying customers out of business? Why? We're their only source of revenue. So we have to make money for them to make money.
Right.
Okay. Second thing, the data inaccuracy. Zillow does not get a direct feed from the MLS. The big part about that is that they're not encumbered by IDX and MLS rules because of that. So they get their feed from a variety of sources, mostly places like ListHub and Point2. But you can upload things directly onto Zillow yourself. You can Postlit, single property websites. There's 100 other places that give data to Zillow, but most of the data comes from syndication conduits like ListHub and Point2. For some reason, because there's so many sources of data, because agents don't update their information, and because MLSs like ours do not show that a property isn't available until the contract period, which takes much longer than most other market areas, they have the same data problem that all the other syndication sites have. Realestate.com, Trulia, HotPads, they all have the same problem. So it's not a Zillow problem is the point. Syndication is inherently suffering from a lag in data updates. Doesn't update in real time. Here's the thing. You cannot demonize Zillow for an industry problem. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first, now the first thing, they take our data and they sell our leads back to us. And if you're a consumer listening to this, you're like, I'm a lead? You're like, you are. If you click on please send me more information, whatever you put in there hopefully will be followed up by a real estate agent who will approach you with the answers to your questions and consider you a prospective customer, which in the nomenclature of our industry makes you a lead.
Right.
Isn't that dignified?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this a lot yesterday because I don't use the internet for leads.
No, you're high touch.
Yeah.
Your sphere of influence.
You know, but very much so. But I also have always kept myself sort of as close to that edge of having an internet presence because I understand that, first of all, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. There's a chunk of people, no matter how well they know me, will end up going online, and who knows who they'll end up getting in touch with just because of convenience or ease. You know, just for example, why I would go online and shop. I do that, and I'm the chairwoman of the Putnam County Chamber of Commerce, and I still sometimes go online and shop as opposed to shopping my local businesses because that's my lifestyle. You know, sometimes I just can't make it to the stores, so it's inevitable. And but the other part of it is too is that in all honesty, I've coached and trained many realtors. 90% don't want to prospect, and it's probably 99%. They don't want to prospect. They don't want to make phone calls. They don't even want to do the kind of you do prospecting in a different way. Besides your Zillow leads, you do blogging and search engine optimization. That's prospecting nowadays. It's a different form, but it's prospecting.
Yep.
So that's why third-party companies are able to be successful, and their business models just change, and they're also able to be ahead of the curve at all times because realtors don't want to prospect. Period.
Well, here's the bigger, and that's human nature. But your point before about shopping online is the point.
Mm-hmm.
Zillow understands what consumers want. Consumers want as much data on the real estate as possible, and they don't like when realtors play the gatekeeper to the data and force them to pick up the phone to call them to find out what the price is, how long it's been on the market, what the original list price it was, or what the taxes are.
What about realtors that are still offering free CMAs?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course. So that's why the Zestimate also is their secret sauce, right? Because it gives them sort of like
people love to know. Well, and they love to know what their neighbor's house is worth.
Of course. So what did my neighbor's house sell for? And Zillow will tell them that also.
Right.
So here is the thing. Here's the thing. Consumers want the same information on real estate that they can get on any other industry. Okay? They can find out if a book is a best-selling book, how to buy the book. They can find out. They can get almost anything they want online.
Absolutely.
I found my wife online. Right? How many people are meeting online on Match.com? Right? There's almost nothing you can't do online except perhaps artificial insemination. Some things you have to be in the same room for. All right? So you have to understand that consumers want information online, and they don't want to have to pick up a phone or make a written inquiry unless they really want to see the house. Realtors kind of understand that, but Zillow understands it better, and sites like theirs are on the cusp, on the curve of what consumers want. So until NAR updates their 1996 Internet Data Exchange policy and gets more granular to compete with the third-party sites, consumers are going to more and more flock to the third-party sites. You didn't make it to Hear It Direct in New Jersey earlier this year, right?
Right.
But when I was on the panel for the buyers, one of the things that struck me, now this is something that was sponsored by Realtor.com, by the way, out of 18 consumers, something like 15 of them, their preferred search website was either Trulia or Zillow. And 3 searched on like board sites or IDX. No one out of 18 consumers said my favorite real estate website is Realtor.com. Can you imagine being the Realtor.com guy that gave the opening welcome speech to the hundreds of people in the room, sitting there feeling like a jerk because he's the one that wrote the check so that everybody could endorse his competitor websites? Wake up.
Right.
But back to the point, Zillow gives people what they want.
Hey,
Therefore, Zillow's not going away.
Realtor.com had a nice run, though.
It had a nice run, and it's not
15 years.
right. And we're not in a post-Realtor.com world either.
Right. No, but they were the only game in town for a long time.
Yep. And they managed to screw it up by not adapting to consumer trends. The agent that accused me of being a bad guy for advertising with Zillow, okay, he resists the idea that consumers have changed and they want data a certain way. And the idea that we have to take back our data or that we are somehow the gatekeeper of information. Sorry?
It's not our data. We might as well go back to carrying the freaking book that was this thick.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, when people complain about the market, and I would take this market or even last year's market and the accessible information over a hot market and having to use an MLS book like this any day, because I can do more business regardless, because it's so easy. It's crazy.
Well, yeah. So again, the point, if we want to maximize the exposure of our listings, it's hard to argue against, as a fiduciary, boycotting certain websites,
Right.
like the syndication websites, because that's where the consumers are. I don't know how you'd sell your client on the fact that, well, I didn't put it on Zillow because I don't like Zillow. Okay, that's where the crowd is.
Oh, I agree. Although I don't utilize it to the same capacity that you do. That was the reason why I came over to your company. Even
exactly.
the big franchise I was with, although it syndicated, I was unable to translate the value of that to a client. It just saying stuff is syndicated. So just being syndicated is not everything, because it's almost a level playing field at this point. Everybody can syndicate their listings. But I think the knowledge that you bring to the table behind the scenes on how these things can benefit and how you can use them to maximize and leverage exposure is really what's important.
Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to make sure that your data is accurate, and there are ways to make sure that if your listing is on Zillow, that it shows it's in the best way possible and it's cast in the best light.
Right.
We just listed something in Putnam Valley that has been owned by the same owner since 1987, and for 2 years it was on Zillow with a large, big box company with data on there that said last sold in 2004 for $50,000 under current asking price. And the lady said, that doesn't make any sense. I didn't sell the house in 2004. I've owned this property since 1982, and we built the house in 87.
Right.
I contacted Zillow. I said, this is inaccurate. It's not a market sale. Let's suppose that it was her half of buying her ex-husband out, or who knows, whatever it was at the time, or a data entry error. Regardless, we fixed it. But herein, we go to what our value is. Okay? Our value to the consumer clearly is no longer as gatekeeper to the information. They don't see us as where they get their information.
Right.
The younger ones, Gen Y, all too often sees us as glorified door unlockers because they can already get the information.
Right.
But the smart ones, especially post Gen Y, understands that our value proposition is as the trusted advisor in the largest financial event of 99% of people's lives.
Right.
Okay? You do not spend $250,000 or $500,000 or $1 million or more dollars alone in a do-it-yourself project. You do not affect a transaction or sell an asset of that value without a trusted advisor and expect that the outcome is going to be fine. The commission is just a line item.
Right.
Okay? You know as well, and I've stated this before, Ann and I used to run a flat fee MLS company on the side. It was mostly on Long Island. We saw we would take $200, put somebody's house on the MLS, and give them the paperwork and say, good luck. When you get a buyer, give them to your attorney. We saw the biggest train wrecks, just self-inflicted disasters on these for sale by owners. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to negotiate. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know how to pre-qualify a buyer, and they don't know how to zig when the buyer zags. There's a guy in Pelham, and here's a guy I hope he can sleep at night. There's a guy in Pelham that started out at $750,000 that ended up selling for $6 million. And he lost $100,000 over time because he kept lowering his price. And I said, you got a beautiful house. You've got offers because I see them come in. What happened? Well, they didn't have a mortgage commitment. Well, they don't get a mortgage commitment, so they sign a contract. He said, well, we're not signing contracts with anybody without a mortgage commitment. All right? If Ann and I had not told him, you've got to take a pre-approval, and then they'll get a mortgage commitment. But you got to make sure the pre-approval has teeth in it, and I know what questions to ask and you don't. This guy probably would have sold for $100,000 more. But he kept throwing perfectly good buyers back into the ash pile. Finally, someone at Stiefvater sold it, and they told us this guy was the biggest idiot they ever dealt with. But he saved X% on the commission.
Right.
Our value proposition is not to suck profit out of a real estate transaction, okay? It is to protect the interests of the client.
Right.
And they get more than that when they work with us.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I don't know if I started believing that when I got into the industry in '96, but boy, do I believe it now. Boy, do I believe it now. And I know it. I've got too much empirical data to refute it, which is why I'm not afraid of Zillow.
Right.
Biggest kid in the playground, you better make friends with them, because that's what they are now.
So do you think someone like me, because I guess I'm in the fourth camp, I'm not afraid of Zillow, I respect Zillow, but I really don't utilize it.
Well, yeah, but first of all, the brokerage does, and you align yourself with the brokerage, so you're not really in a fourth camp. You're probably in the we do business with Zillow camp. It's just that one of the perks of the company is you don't have to write the check. I do. The broker writes the check. If you want to do what some of the agents do and write a check to Zillow, you can, but I believe on your listings you're listed as the listing agent. Am I not mistaken?
I have no idea.
Well, let's find out. Let's Google.
Give me 1 second.
What's the address of, give me an address of one of your listings.
7 Lakeview, Carmel.
7 Lakeview Drive?
Yeah.
Carmel, New York. Let's see. Okay, so here's what we have on Lakeview Drive. You were at the, there are 4 agents on this side, okay? You were at the top as the listing agent to contact.
Okay.
And you're at the bottom as the listing agent to contact, and it says provided by Jenn Maher of J. Phillip Real Estate LLC. So his estimate on the house, by the way, is $291,985, and the asking price is $299. All right.
Okay.
Go on.
So that's because. So I don't have to pay to advertise with Zillow to get that. So then if I did pay to advertise with Zillow, what does it do?
If you bought some impressions every month in the Premier Agent program,
yeah.
contact for the listener.
Right.
And then we create a email rules in your Zillow back office, and you can give the leads to Christina or Tom or whoever you partner up with on that listing, so that you don't have to work with the with the buyers yourself because there's only so many hours in the day. Okay.
Right.
But this is not a commercial for the Premier Agent program. It's just the short version is you don't write a check to them, but you're not one of the xenophobes, and you're not one of the people that, you know, you just don't do business with Zillow because you're with a company that does business with Zillow.
Well, and I think that I think it's, well, I don't know if this is going to come out right, but I think it's important that I'm the contact agent too. Not that people should have to go through the listing agents. You know, I don't want to be promoting that, but I think for the online purposes, I think you're protecting your seller somewhat if they're getting the information from you. Does that make sense?
Totally, and that's one of the controversies about them selling our leads back to us, right? When I started syndicating listings, the business models weren't fleshed out yet. So Trulia and Zillow and all the other, and Realtor.com always had the listing agent as the sole contact because that was the intuitive thing to do. Then somebody got the idea that, hey, we'll sell zip codes to other agents because buyers will want a buyer agent, right? They may not want to necessarily deal with the listing agent, and those buyer agents can be the contacts for the listings.
Right.
Probably no different from IDX, by the way. You know, if another company, if someone searches another company's listings on my website, I'm the contact because I'm the one that put out the money for that on my website, right? So if you're on a company's website and you see any other competitor company's listings on that website, there's only one contact, and that's the agent who owns the website. So if you're on JennMaher.com and you're searching properties, even if it's listed with Houlihan Lawrence or Joe Schlabotnik Realty, Jenn Maher is still going to be the contact for that listing. That's always been the way it's been. That's not the issue. What they do is they resent the idea that they have to pay to be contacted on their own listings. Well, that's kind of the way it is now. And you can fight it, and you can complain, and you can scream, and everything like that. But we let that horse out of the barn, and now we have to adapt. And since no one had...
And I can guarantee you, just like every other third-party affiliate, and just, for example, Realtor.com, it has its window. There'll be a period where Zillow is going to be, you have to use it, and because that's where the consumers are. And then it'll, I mean, I hope they have a good run, because I support capitalism, but it's what is that, cyclical? You know, it's not going to be like that forever either.
Well,
don't you agree?
No, I think there are going to be cycles, but here's the thing: if I have to put my chips on who's going to best adapt to the changing market trends in real estate, I put my money on nonprofit death by committee at our trade organization, or am I going to put my money on really super smart, lean, mean capitalists who are always hiring the best people, doing the best research, and have, like, frankly, awesome, you know, mad scientists in the back laboratory always figuring out a different way to reach out of the computer and grab the consumer's attention.
Yeah, the research and development is still alive.
Totally. I mean, I've met some of these guys. These guys are really smart. I know the Daimlers who developed Bifolio. Matt and Susan Daimler. They developed Bifolio, got huge market share in New York City. I think they had something like 10%, which in Manhattan is pretty amazing. Zillow bought them, and it's now Agent Folio, which is part of the Zillow suite of tools. Okay. Jay Thompson, Brad Anderson, people that Zillow has hired. These are really good people. These are really good, smart people. And they all get it. They're all forward thinkers. They're all very agent-centric in their frame of reference. So we don't have anybody that's got this, you know, sinister, we're going to put agents out of business. Baloney. They want agents to make more money. They are giving agents amazing tools, and the economy of scale they're working on, because they're with Zillow, it's virtually for free. I would not have been able to compete on the level playing field and build the company the way I have without tools like this 10, 15 years ago. I would have been relegated to newspaper and penny saver and a bunch of baloney and hot air. All right, I couldn't have done what I've done without good technology tools like these. So what we're going to see is a trend going forward of what I would term like a microbrew style of independent brokerages. They're going to start branching off from the larger companies because they realize the water's fine. Jump in. I don't have to pay franchise fees. I don't need the big name. I don't have Stockholm syndrome that I have to be under this big banner. And we're starting to see it. This lady Kendall Young in California started Diggs, and there's others like at Cobalt Realty. My friend Cindy on the Zillow advisory board started her own firm. We're starting to see more independent firms come out because we have tools. We have the tools to compete with the big guys. All right. So it is a leveling the playing field, and these smaller microbrew boutique companies are going to do an amazing job at serving their niches because these are people that get what the consumers want again.
And that's why I would say the last 10 years the franchise real estate companies have had such a good run was because the capital that it would take to have the technology that was needed to syndicate and have these powerful websites and what have you. It's no longer, it's now a level playing field. Everybody has access to that technology. I mean, at a reasonable cost. So
exactly.
I agree with you.
The large firms have expanded because the small firms contracted in the declining housing crash, right?
But I think technology was a big part of that. I think someone like me, when I owned Incline Real Estate, I didn't really have the capital to put together the tools that I thought were needed. You've managed to do that, but some of that technology has become more accessible to you as well.
Yep. No doubt.
Where it wasn't.
No doubt. So I think as the market loosens up, you're going to see more of that because the tools are available. All right. So to your client who asked about why is his estimate so low?
Yes.
He's either got to claim it, claim the listing, and start correcting the data, or the listing agent claims the listing and starts inputting data to make sure that this estimate comes more in line with the market value. And it's no different than an agent who helps people grieve their taxes. Just a different platform. That's all. Different platform and a different metric.
Right.
So I think we've beat Zillow and the syndicators to death here.
Yeah, I think we did. I have an appraisal, so I'm going to go off and meet my appraiser.
It's been a slice of heaven, Jen.
Have a great day.
You do the same.